Time. It's one of those things that completely surrounds us, right? But it's totally invisible. And because we can't see it or touch it, we as humans desperately want a way to structure it. We want to grasp it, make sense of our past, coordinate our busy present, and, of course, plan for the future. So how do we actually pull that off? Well, we measure it. Let's dive right into this explainer of Chapter 13 and break down exactly how we track time, zooming all the way from the massive macro scale down to the tiny micro moments. To really ground this abstract idea, just look at this everyday domestic scene. This family right here, they aren't huddled around some complex scientific instrument. No, they're just gathered around a simple wall calendar. And honestly, this is the universal human experience of time management. Whether you're a parent trying to plan a holiday or a kid eagerly counting down until the weekend, the calendar is our shared map. It takes that endless, kind of overwhelming flow of days and organizes them into a neat, easy-to-understand grid that the whole family can just stand around and figure out together. I love this little quote from the text. Appa bought a new calendar. Amma points a big blunder. Missing was the month of July. Let us play the calendar game. You see, learning about time doesn't have to be some rigid, boring chore. By turning the calendar into a literal puzzle, a game where we have to figure out how the months actually fit together, we instantly spark our curiosity. I mean, if July is just mysteriously missing, how do we find it? Well, to do that, we've got to understand the rules of the game. And that brings us to our agenda for today, which has a really logical flow mirroring how we actually experience time. First, we'll play the calendar game. Then, we'll look at important dates and documents. Third, we're going to zoom in on reading the clock. And finally, we'll wrap up by exploring the duration of time. Okay, let's jump straight into Section 1, the calendar game, where we navigate years and months. So, let's establish the strict foundational rules of this calendar game. First off, a year is broken down into exactly 12 distinct months. But as you probably know, it's not perfectly uniform. While most months rock 30 or 31 days, some have fewer. Looking at you, February. Beneath that monthly layer, we have the steady, reliable rhythm of a standard 7-day week. Now, these rules, they're actually super powerful because they literally let us calculate the future. For example, if your school closes on July 7th for exactly 15 days, you can use these basic rules to easily count forward and predict the exact day you have to go back. Now, let's put that macro time knowledge to the test. In our text, Heedle guesses that there are 53 weeks in a single year. Is she right? Think about your own calendar knowledge for a second here. We know there are 365 days and 12 months, but how many of those 7-day cycles actually fit into one single trip around the sun? Not quite. A standard year actually consists of exactly 52 weeks. Consider Heddle's guess officially myth-busted. Honestly, it's a super easy mistake to make, but blocking in this number, 52, is an absolutely crucial part of mastering the calendar game. It gives us this perfectly standardized way to measure our year in medium-sized, manageable chunks. Moving right along to Section 2, important dates and documents, and how we track life events. Now check this out. A birth certificate is basically a permanent document that tightly anchors a person to a very specific date. Here we have Bincy Thomas Jacob, officially recorded as being born on the 2nd of May, 2015. This right here is exactly why we need those strict rules of the calendar. We have to have a rock-solid, reliable system to record when life events actually happen, ensuring that someone like Bincy will always know exactly when to celebrate her birthday year after year. But it goes beyond just personal paperwork, right? Tracking shared festivals gives our annual calendar a real sense of rhythm and, honestly, community anticipation. We map out massive events like Deepawali, Christmas, Eid al-Fitr, Independence Day, and Guru Purab. And these aren't just random days off. They're vital cultural anchors. They transform our calendar from just a boring grid of black and white numbers into a vibrant, predictable cycle of celebrations that whole communities look forward to all year long. All right, zooming in a bit more, Section 3, reading the clock, from quarters to halves. As we get down to the micro level, look at how these hands shift to represent the steady, ongoing passage of minutes. The longer minute hand makes this relatively quick, constant journey around the clock face, while that shorter hour hand makes a much slower, super gradual progression. It's literally a mechanical, physical representation of the Earth's rotation, just scaled way down to fit on your kitchen wall or your wrist. Notice these two super common fractions of time we've got here? This shows exactly how we divide a whole hour into manageable conversational chunks. Think about it. We don't always say 8:15, do we? We usually just say it's 8:15, And when that minute hand points straight down to the 6, we call 8:30 8:30. We use this everyday language of fractions to make the passage of time feel way more intuitive and just easier to chat about in our daily lives. Okay, before we move on, we really need to quickly establish a key technical distinction: analog versus digital. So, an analog clock uses physical geometry, literally the angles of the second, minute, and hour hands, to tell us exactly where we are in the day. A digital clock, on the other hand, skips the moving parts and just feeds us the raw numbers using digits. And while they look completely different on the surface, they are both translating the exact same fundamental rules of time into information we can actually use. And that brings us to our final part, Section 4, the duration of time, or how long does it take? By looking at a typical day in the life of Hatal here, we can see that different activities inherently demand entirely different durations of our day, right? She wakes up, stretches, grabs some breakfast, walks to school, hits the books, and then plays outside. Time isn't just about reading numbers on a clock. It's about how long we actually engage in an action. Eating a meal might take, 20 minutes? But sitting in school takes several hours. We literally experience time through the duration of our actions. And this means categorizing life events by the specific unit of time they demand. For instance, taking a quick shower, that's measured in minutes. Stitching a whole shirt together, well, that requires hours. But then, look at nature. Growing a little radish takes weeks, while growing a full cabbage takes months. To me, this perfectly scales our perspective back out, from the tiny micro measurements of our watches right back up to the massive macro measurements of our calendars. Now, you can actually build a physical tool to measure duration yourself, a DIY sand clock. By just following these simple steps, gluing 2 bottle caps together, poking a tiny hole with a needle, and adding some fine sand to 2 transparent bottles, you literally take the invisible concept of time passing and make it wonderfully, tangibly visible. As that sand drops grain by grain, you are watching actual seconds and minutes happen right in front of your very eyes. How cool is that? So, from the grand scale of a 12-month calendar and its 52 weeks, all the way down to the fractions of an hour on a clock face, and finally to those tiny falling grains of sand in a timer, time just keeps going on. The structures are there to guide us, for sure, but how we actually choose to fill those minutes, hours, and weeks, well, that is entirely up to us. So I want to leave you with this final thought. How will you measure and, more importantly, value your time today?